The Jew of Malta. Full title: The Famous Tragedy of the Rich Jew of Malta, is a play by Christopher Marlow, written in 1589 or 1590. The plot primarily revolves around a Maltese Jewish merchant named Barabbas. The original story combines religious conflict, intrigue, and revenge, set against a backdrop of the struggle for supremacy between Spain and the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean that takes place on the island of Malta. There has been extensive debate about the play's portrayal of Jews and how Elizabethan audiences would have viewed it. Revenge tragedy, sometimes referred to as revenge drama, revenge play, or tragedy of blood, is a theoretical genre in which the principal theme is revenge and revenge's fatal consequences. Formally established by American educator Ashley H. Thorndike in his 1902 article, The Relations of Hamlet to Contemporary Revenge Plays, a revenge tragedy documents the progress of the protagonist's revenge plot and often leads to the demise of both the murderers and the avenger himself. The genre first appeared in early modern Britain with the publication of Thomas Kyd's The Spanish Tragedy during the latter half of the 16th century. Earlier works, such as Jasper Heywood's translations of Seneca 1560s and Thomas Norton and Thomas Sackville's play Gorboduc 1561, are also considered revenge tragedies. Other well-known revenge tragedies include William Shakespeare's Hamlet, circa 1599-1602, Titus Andronicus, circa 1588-1593, and the Revenger's Tragedy, circa 1606, formerly believed to be by Cyril Tourneur, now ascribed to Thomas Middleton. Christopher Marlow, also known as Kit Marlowe, baptized the 26th of February 1564 to the 30th of May 1593, was an English playwright, poet and translator of the Elizabethan era. Marlow is among the most famous of the Elizabethan playwrights. Based upon the many imitations of his play Tamburlaine, modern scholars consider him to have been the foremost dramatist in London in the years just before his mysterious early death. Some scholars also believe that he greatly influenced William Shakespeare, who was baptized in the same year as Marlow and later succeeded him as the preeminent Elizabethan playwright. Marlow was the first to achieve critical reputation for his use of blank verse, which became the standard for the era. His plays are distinguished by their overreaching protagonists. Themes found within Marlow's literary works have been noted as humanistic with realistic emotions, which some scholars find difficult to reconcile with Marlow's anti-intellectualism, and his catering to the prurient tastes of his Elizabethan audiences for generous displays of extreme physical violence, cruelty, and bloodshed. The play opens with the character Machiavel, a Senecan ghost based on Niccolò Machiavelli, introducing the tragedy of a Jew. Machiavel expresses the cynical view that power is amoral, saying, "I count religion but a childish toy, and hold there is no sin but ignorance." Barabbas begins the play in his counting house. Stripped of all he has for protesting the governor of Malta's seizure of the wealth of the country's whole Jewish population to pay off the warring Turks, he develops a murderous streak by, with the help of his slave Ithamore, tricking the governor's son and his friend into fighting over the affections of his daughter, Abigail. When they both die in a duel, he becomes further incensed when Abigail, horrified at what her father has done, runs away to become a Christian nun. In retribution, Barabbas then goes on to poison her along with the whole of the nunnery, strangles an old friar Barnardine who tries to make him repent for his sins and then frames another friar Giacomo for the first friar's murder. After Ithamore falls in love with a prostitute who conspires with her criminal friend to blackmail and expose him, after Ithamore drunkenly tells them everything his master has done, Barabbas poisons all three of them. When he is caught, he drinks of poppy and cold mandrake juice, so that he will be left for dead, and then plots with the enemy Turks to besiege the city. When at last Barabbas is nominated governor by his new allies, he switches sides to the Christians once again. Having devised a trap for the Turks' galley slaves and soldiers in which they will all be demolished by gunpowder, he then sets a trap for the Turkish prince himself and his men, hoping to boil them alive in a hidden cauldron. Just at the key moment, however, the former governor double-crosses him and causes him to fall into his own trap. The play ends with the Christian governor holding the Turkish prince hostage until reparations are paid. Barabbas curses them as he burns. Characters: Machiavel, speaker of the prologue. Barabbas, a rich Jewish merchant of Malta. Abigail, his daughter. Ithamore, his slave. Fernez, governor of Malta. Don Lodowick, his son. Don Matthias, Lodowic's friend. Catherine, Matthias' mother. Friar Giacomo. Friar Bernardine, Abbas. Selim Kalimath, son of the Emperor of Turkey. Clapin, a Bashaw. Martin del Bosco, Vice Admiral of Spain. Bellamira, a courtesan. Palia Borsa, her pimp. 2 merchants. 3 Jews. A messenger. A slave. Knights of Malta. Officers of Malta. Bashaws serving the Turkish emperor. Carpenters. Anan. Citizens of Malta, Turkish Janizaries, guards, attendants, slaves. Broad summary. Most people think that Masheville is dead, but his soul lives on, and now he has come from France to England to have some fun. Masheville's name is odious to many. It is those who despise him the most, including those who rise to the papacy, who also admire him the most. To Masheville, religion is a childish toy, and the only sin is ignorance. Many people call his methods murder, but Masheville thinks this is foolish. Strong nations require strong leaders, and one that rules with might. But Masheville is not here to talk about himself. He is here to introduce the tragedy of a Jew who smiles to see how full his bags are crammed. The Jew, Barabbas, obtained his gold through Masheville's means, but Masheville asks the audience not to judge Barabbas too harshly. They must judge him by his merit, not because he supports Machiavellianism. Barabbas enters his counting house and is surrounded by piles of gold. 3 Jews enter and tell Barabbas about the arrival of a Turkish fleet. The men fear war, but Barabbas calms them. Malta is in league with the Ottoman Empire, he says, and the fleet surely comes in peace. However, in a short aside, Barabbas admits he cares little about Malta or the other Jews. The Turks can wage war all they want, as long as they leave Barabbas, his gold, and his daughter, Abigail, alone. The men tell Barabbas there will be a meeting at the Senate House, and every Jew in Malta is expected to attend. In the meantime, Farnese, the governor of Malta, enters the Senate House with Selim Kalimath, the son of the Turkish emperor. Malta owes the Turks 10 years' worth of tribute payments. However, to avoid war, Kalimath gives Farnese 30 days to collect the money. Barabbas and the other Jews are escorted in, and Farnese informs them that the Turks have come for their tribute money, and the sum is more than Malta has. Therefore, each Jew in Malta must surrender half their wealth to cover the bill. If they refuse, their entire estate will be seized, and they will be forced to convert to Christianity. Barabbas asks if everyone in Malta will be taxed. The Jews alone stand accursed in the sight of heaven, Farnese says, so the Jews alone will pay. Barabbas claims he will not convert, nor will he give half his wealth to Malta. Farnese says that Malta will take all Barabbas's wealth. Barabbas reluctantly agrees to pay half, but Farnese says it is too late. Barabbas has refused, and now his wealth belongs to Malta. As the Jews are escorted out of the Senate House, a knight suggests they turn Barabbas's mansion into a nunnery. Farnese agrees that converting Barabbas's home is a good idea and exits with his men. Alone, Barabbas says he will not let Farnese get away with stealing his wealth, and he vows to get even. Suddenly, Abigail enters in hysterics. She has been ejected from their home, which is being converted into a convent. Barabbas tells Abigail not to worry. He has bags of gold and jewels hidden in the floorboards, and it is enough to get them started again. We ought to make bar of no policy, Barabbas says, telling Abigail to go back to the house and ask to be accepted as a nun. That way, she can retrieve the hidden gold from the floorboards. For religion, Barabbas says, hides many mischiefs from suspicion. Abigail resists. Such deceit is not right, she says, but Barabbas convinces her. Counterfeit passion is better than unseen hypocrisy, he says. When 2 friars, Giacomo and Bernardine, pass on their way to the new convent, Abigail asks to join the nunnery. Excited to convert a Jew, the friars agree and take Abigail to the convent. Later that night, Barabbas appears outside his old mansion, and Abigail throws down the bags of gold. Oh my girl, my gold, my fortune, my felicity, Barabbas says, clutching the bags to his body. Abigail warns him that the nuns will soon be waking, and he runs off with his gold. Meanwhile, Farnese enters with Marin del Bosco, the vice admiral of Spain. Bosco has many Turkish slaves to sell, but Farnese informs him that such business violates Malta's tributary league with the Turks. Bosco is surprised Farnese is in league with the Turks, and he offers Farnese a way to keep the 100,000 crowns Malta owes the Ottoman Empire. If Farnese allows Bosco to sell his slaves, he promises Spain's protection, and his fleet will not leave until Malta is safe from the Turks. Farnese immediately agrees. So will we fight it out, Farnese says as he exits with Bosco and the knights. Honor is bought with blood and not with gold. The next day, Barabbas enters the market to buy a slave. His pockets are full of money, and he has already purchased a new house even bigger than Farnese's. Barabbas watches as Farnese's son, Don Lodowick enters the market. Barabbas swears revenge upon Lodowick, too, for the sin of being Farnese's son and approaches the young man. Lodowick heard about Barabbas's beautiful daughter from his friend, Don Matthias, and Lodowick has come to the market hoping to catch a glimpse of Abigail. He asks Barabbas if he has any diamonds to sell, but Barabbas says the only diamond he has left is Abigail. Lodowick is indeed interested, and Barabbas tells him to call on him later to talk about price. Lodowick exits, and Barabbas buys a skinny Turkish slave named Ithamor. Soon after, Matthias enters with his mother, Catherine. Matthias quietly asks Barabbas why he was talking to Lodowick, and Barabbas tells Matthias not to worry. Lodowick is interested in a diamond, not Abigail, Barabbas says, reassuring Matthias that he will be the one to marry Abigail. Alone with Ithamor, Barabbas learns about his new slave. Like Barabbas, Ithamor hates Christians and murders them every chance he gets. Lodowick returns, asking about the diamond, so Barabbas yells for Abigail. In a quick aside, Barabbas convinces Abigail to pretend to love Lodowick, even though she is really in love with Matthias. Abigail is hesitant, but Barabbas assures her it is just for show. Barabbas privately celebrates his policy, he will send a forged letter to Matthias, and as Lodowick, he will challenge Matthias to a duel. The two men will surely kill each other, and Barabbas's plan will be complete. Bellamira, a local prostitute, laments the business she has lost since the Turks blocked Malta's port. Her friend, a thief named Pelia Borza, enters, and gives her a small bag of silver, which he took from Barabbas's counting house. Suddenly, Ithamor walks by and immediately falls in love with the beautiful Bellamira. Pelia Borza and Bellamira rush off, and Ithamor goes to deliver the forged letter. Later, both Matthias and Lodowick enter, and Barabbas watches from above. Matthias and Lodowick draw their swords, stabbing each other to death. As Barabbas slips away. Unseen, Farnese and Catherine enter to find their sons dead. They quickly realize that someone must have turned the men against each other, and they swear revenge against whoever is responsible. As Farnese and Catherine exit with their dead sons, Abigail enters with Ithamor, who are laughing. She asks him what is so funny, and Ithamor tells her all about Barabbas's forged letter and Lodowick and Matthias's deadly duel. Betrayed by her father and mourning the loss of her true love, Matthias, Abigail joins the convent again, this time for real. When Barabbas finds out what Abigail has done, he is furious, and he quickly plots another scheme. He stirs poison into a pot of rice and tells Ithamor to deliver it to the convent. Once consumed, the poison requires 40 hours to take effect, but it is sure to kill Abigail and the entire nunnery. As Farnese and Bosco brace Malta for a Turkish attack, Abigail visits Bernardine for her final confession. All the nuns are dead, and Abigail will soon be dead, too. She tells Bernardine all about Barabbas's involvement in Matthias's and Lodowick's deaths and promptly dies. Later, as Barabbas and Ithamor celebrate the sound of funeral bells, Bernardine enters with Giacomo. It is clear to Barabbas that the two friars know about his involvement in Matthias's and Lodowick's deaths, and Barabbas knows that he must get rid of the friars, too. Barabbas and Ithamor strangle Bernardine, frame Giacomo for his murder, and deliver the friar to the court. As Giacomo is hanged, Pelia Borza delivers Ithamor a letter from Bellamira, in which she confesses her deep, and secretly false, love for him. He immediately goes to visit her, and, along with Pelia Borza, Bellamira easily convinces Ithamor to extort money from Barabbas. Ithamor first asks for 300 crowns, and then 500 crowns, but Barabbas won't pay so easily. He finally agrees to send Ithamor a few silver coins, and then he quickly begins plotting the deaths of Bellamira, Pelia Borza, and Ithamor. While Ithamore, Bellamira, and Pelia Borza drink and celebrate their easy money, Barabbas enters disguised as a French musician. He gives Bellamira a flower, which she smells and hands to Pelia Borza and Ithamore. As they smell the flower, Barabbas smiles and exits. The flower is laced with the same poison that killed Abigail and the nuns. It is not long before Bellamira and Pelia Borza betray Ithamore and tell Fernez all about the crimes Ithamore committed with Barabbas. Fernez attempts to question Ithamore and Barabbas, but they die before he gets the chance, along with Bellamira and Pelia Borza. Fernez orders the bodies buried, except for Barabbas, who is thrown from the city walls for vultures to feed on. As soon as Barabbas hits the ground, he wakes up, having taken a sedative to trick Fernez's men. Calamath approaches, and Barabbas offers to help the Turks conquer Malta. Afterward, Calamath is so thankful, he makes Barabbas Malta's new governor. Alone with Fernez, Barabbas asks what it would be worth to the Christians if he was to kill Calamath and free Malta from the Turks. Fernez assures Barabbas that such a task would be worth great sums of money, and Barabbas quickly hatches a new plan. He will invite Calamath and his men to a feast before they leave for Turkey. Calamath will dine with Barabbas, and his men will feast in a monastery outside of town, at which time, Barabbas will blow up the monastery and drop Calamath through a trapdoor into a boiling cauldron to his death. Barabbas only needs Fernez to cut the trapdoor's rope after he hears the cannon hit the monastery. Fernez agrees, but when Calamath arrives and the cannon hits the monastery, Fernez cuts the rope just a moment early, dropping Barabbas into the cauldron instead. As Barabbas dies, Fernez informs Calamath that his men are dead and takes him prisoner. Calamath begs for his freedom, but Fernez refuses. Calamath will remain their prisoner, and Malta will never be conquered again. So march away, Fernez says as they exit, and let due praise be given neither to fate nor fortune, but to heaven. Seuss, https://www.litcharts.com/lit/the-ju-of-Malta/summary